Hello, it is me again, Becky. Thank you for stopping by. Today, as continuing my birthday month of recommending you books based on my favorite trope, which is friends to lovers, today I am going to share with you some fantasy romance books that have the friends to lovers dynamic. These are a little bit more hard to come by because usually fantasy romance is enemies to lovers. And while I do enjoy that trope, it just isn't my favorite. I do prefer friends to lovers. So anytime I can find a good fantasy romance that has that friends to lovers dynamic, I just devour them. It's a rainy day here. So if you hear rain and thunder in the background, just think of it as ambiance, okay? I have a moment to film, so I'm going to take advantage of it. So to start off, I'm going to share with you a young adult fantasy romance that I think anybody could read from, I don't know, say 12 on up. Anybody could enjoy really because it doesn't have any smut in it. It does have some like intimate moments and that like heartfelt romance that you would feel, but nothing that, you know, a 12-year-old couldn't digest. And that is A Daughter of the Trolls by Mackenzie Catron. So in this, we are following an 18-year-old girl named Sparrow who lives in this magical glen with a bunch of like fairy tale-esque creatures. But she is confined to a wheelchair because she has a heart problem. And her village doesn't really expect much of her, doesn't think she's really capable of all that much. So her one job is to always put this perimeter around her village at the end of the day to protect them from this evil witch invading. And one day she makes a mistake and this evil witch comes in, attacks her village, kills a lot of her people, and steals a lot of her family and friends. So she has to set out on this journey with her childhood friend Rush, who is an elf, and they have to make their way through this enchanted forest that isn't built for a girl in a wheelchair to try and save her family and friends. I really enjoyed this one because it has a character with a disability who stays disabled. Magic doesn't magically cure her like it does in a lot of other fantasy stories. She stays in her wheelchair. And this was also written by an author who uses a wheelchair herself, so the disability rep is very authentic in it. I really liked the sweet, very pure relationship between Rush and Sparrow. They have been separated for a time, so when he comes back, she's sort of rediscovering this boy that is now a man. There's a lot of magical elements within this forest and the creatures she encounters, and it does have a little bit of a darker nature to it with this evil witch, but nothing like too dark. So that's why I say it could be read by anybody from like 12 years old and up. I really loved it. It's a super short book, so if you're looking for something with disability rep in your fantasy romance as well as friends to lovers, this is a really cute story. My next recommendation is one called Shardless by Stephanie Fisher. So this was a fantasy romance that I stumbled upon when I was specifically searching for friends to lovers fantasy romances, and I really thought this was an incredibly unique, like, fae fantasy romance. In this, we are following this young woman named Tally, who is a human, and when something happens, she ends up being taken in by this fae family who takes care of her sort of as their adoptive daughter. And there she grows up with her best friend, Sky. But Tally, as she has grown up, she is probably in her early 20s at the point the story starts. She is realizing that she is developing this magic that is very against the law in this world and that she as a human should not have. And if her adopted family is known to be harboring her, they could get in a lot of trouble. So in an effort to protect her adopted family and her friend Sky, she runs away and she ends up taking this job as sort of hunting down artifacts for people who need it. And one day she's in a bit of a pickle and her best friend Sky ends up saving her, and he in return wants her help to try to find this gate that he is looking for to get to a different realm. And as they are put into forced proximity with one another, they realize that their friendship has blossomed into more, but she's still hesitant to share this new ability that she has developed with him. This is another one that has absolutely no spice in it. I think the second book might have like a closed door scene, but in this first book, it's pretty much a kissing scene is maybe all you're gonna get. But the pining and the slow burn really, really worked for me. I also loved this world. It has a good mix of like magic and technology, so it's sort of like an urban fantasy, but it just worked so well, and the fae aspect of it was unlike anything I had read before. So far, this is just a duology. I'm hoping that the author continues with the series because I don't think it left off on a place that ended good for a duology, but I haven't heard anything about it. So if you're looking for something unique as far as fae fantasy romances go that lean a little bit more on the fantasy than the romance, but still has that friends to lovers dynamic in it, I think you'd really enjoy this. Next up is book 3 in a trilogy, so I don't recommend starting with this book, but it does have that friends to lovers element in it, and this is Symphony for a Deadly Throne by E.J. Mello. This is about Arabella and Zimri. Arabella is one of 3 sisters known as the Musai, who have these very unique gifts that they use to help their father control this kingdom. And Arabella has the ability to use music to persuade people, to entrance people. So she uses her, I think it's a violin, to persuade people. But she really wants to just set out on her own. She wants to live her own life away from being part of this Musai trilogy that helps her father. And Zimri has been a man she has known for quite a while. He is her father's right-hand man. So they have never acted upon their feelings or attraction for one another, but they have always maintained that friendship. Until, again, something happens and that friendship develops into more. But now Arabella has to decide whether she wants to strike out on her own or if she wants this relationship with Zimri, because she can't have both. Or can she? This is another really unique series. I thought the world building in here was incredibly unique. The gifts or talents that the sisters within the series have is incredibly unique within a fantasy series. It wasn't anything I had ever read before. I really thought that Zimri and Arabella had great chemistry too, and this does have more smut in it. Not a lot, again, maybe like 1 to 2 smut scenes, but I absolutely loved this. I don't know why I don't own this series, quite honestly, because I really did enjoy it. Next up, we have The Hanging City by Charlie N. Holmberg. So this, again, is another really unique fantasy romance. This is about Lark and Asmar. Lark is this young woman who has this ability that has been causing her trouble, and her father has been using her for this ability. So they almost live in like this dystopian-esque fantasy world where you're never really sure what happened to get the world where it's at. That's not the best described within the story, which is a drawback to it. But Lark sets out to run away from her abusive father, and she seeks sanctuary in the Troll Kingdom, which is this kingdom that lives under this bridge. And the trolls tell her that she can live there as long as she uses her ability to kill off the monsters that are plaguing their under bridge territory. So she ends up being matched up with this brother and sister troll to sort of be their maid as their live-in roommate. And in this kingdom, she is one of very few humans, and humans are seen as the lowest class citizen. And while she is working there, while she is living there, she ends up forming this friendship that leads into romance with her troll roommate, Asmar. So I thought this was unique because it is a 3 Billy Goats Gruff reimagining, which is something I've never, ever read. So to see that in a fantasy romance was really interesting to me. I loved the found family in here, and I loved the progression from like strangers to friends to romance with Asmar. It's a very slow building romance. This has, I think, 1 closed door smut scene. So this again is a very low spice fantasy romance. Because I am a sap, this did make me cry, the relationship dynamic between her and Asmar. And Asmar is just this cinnamon roll of a character. He is just so great. So if you're looking for something with low spice, a really unique concept, you should check this out. But just keep in mind that that whole world building isn't the greatest in this. You sort of just have to go along with it. But I really enjoyed it. Alright, let's get this one out of the way because it is my favorite book ever. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably know what I'm about to share, and that is Radiance by Grace Draven. This is my favorite book of all time. This is my favorite fantasy romance of all time. This is about Brishan and Ildiko, who are 2 people that are down in the ranks of their royal families, and they get put into an arranged marriage for alliances reasons, not really expecting much of it. They are from two different species. Ildiko is a human, Brishan is a Kai, so he's got gray skin, glowing eyes, claws, sharp teeth, and they both find each other very repulsive. They are not attracted to each other at all. But they start in this very mature relationship where they know that they're being put into this arranged marriage, so they're like, let's make the best of it. Let's start as friends. So they do. And in this book, there's really not a whole lot going on other than them traveling to Brishan's kingdom and them getting to know one another. So if you like your whole action and your world building, this could seem pretty boring to you. But I freaking loved these characters. I adore them with my whole heart. And because they are getting to know each other, they eventually discover that they are attracted to each other's personalities, which then leads into a physical attraction. And it's just so good. This is a low spice fantasy romance, but there are a couple smut scenes within this story. So this will forever be my favorite fantasy romance, friends to lovers dynamic. Highly recommend it. A book that I read just this year that I think has great parallels to Radiance, but for completely different reasons, is The Scattered Bones by Nicole Scarano. So this is the story of Sella and Cade. Sella has grown up since she was a young child to be this vessel for this very narcissistic god who will one day inhabit her body because she's so beautiful. So she has been sequestered away. She's not allowed to be touched by anybody or anything like that. And Cade is an assassin of sorts. And he sneaks into her window one day as sort of a dare. And he meets Sella and they get to know one another, and he really opens her eyes to the world that she's never seen. They form this very beautiful friendship that leads into a romance, and then something happens and he gets dismembered and his bones and body parts are scattered all over this realm. And Sella, because she loves him so much, she sets out on this journey to find his body pieces, to put them back together so that she can resurrect him. And this packed a huge punch for a very short book. This also is a standalone fantasy romance, but the relationship between Sella and Cade was so beautifully done. This is one, again, that made me cry. Even though I knew a scene was coming, because this does have a past and present timeline, we see what's already occurred in the present, and then we sort of have flashbacks to their relationship as it's developed. So you know what's going to happen. But me, again, being the sap that I am, I still cried reading that scene. Then I have The Serpent's Touch duet by Marina Simcoe. So this is about Amira and Kellen. Amira is this young woman who has been severely neglected throughout her life, but she is saved by this mysterious man and taken to work at this freak show menagerie where she's pretty much treated as hired help, really low on the totem pole hired help. Everybody in this menagerie, except for the man who saved her, really treat her poorly. So she's very quiet, she's very timid, and when the madame of this traveling freak show menagerie brings in this new exhibit, she gets curious about it because she hears things but she doesn't see anything. So she starts talking to this creature that is in this crate that she cannot see, and she discovers that it is Kellen, and he is a Gorgon. They develop this friendship, and he explains where all these creatures have come from that are in this menagerie, and she decides to help him try to escape and go back to his Fae realm, where he is a prince of his Fae territory. So in this book, there's a Fae realm, but they're all very different Fae. He is a Gorgon, which means, if she sees him, she'll be turned to stone. There's gargoyles, there's winged fae, there's shadow fae. There's a whole setup to this world. I really enjoyed this one for the relationship development between Amira and Kellen. I also really loved seeing Amira's character growth. She is probably going to be a female main character that a lot of people wouldn't really like because she's not this badass female main character. She's very timid, she's very shy, she's very unsure of herself. So in the second book, to see her really embrace her confidence and shine for the person she is was so great to see that progression. This does have a little bit more smut in it. I want to say about probably 2 smut scenes in the first book and in the second book. But if you're once again looking for a unique world with some character growth you should check this out. Up next is the second book in a duology. So once again, I don't recommend starting with this book, but this is where you see really the friends to lovers dynamic come out to play. And that is The Demons in the Deep by Rebecca F. Kenney. So the first book in this is The Teeth in the Tide. This is a fantasy romance that revolves around a merman who is seeking a better life for his son. He has been used as a stud pretty much in this very deadly mer kingdom. So when he finds out that he has a young son and these killer mermaid queens are telling him that he needs to raise him and prepare him to take on the role that Rake has led, who is our main male character, he doesn't want that for his son. He wants him to live a better life. So he's trying to find a way to get legs to get his son on the island so that the humans could potentially give him a better life. And in this book, I'm not going to tell you who his love interest is, but we see his love interest in the first book, but she's not a prominent character within the first book, which I thought, again, was such a unique dynamic, because in the first book, you would think that the main female main character and Rake, the main male character, would be the romantic dynamic, and it's not. So that threw me for a loop. And I just really liked seeing this fantasy romance from the male perspective as opposed to the female perspective. So if you want a seafaring mermaid fantasy romance that has a friends to lovers dynamic, you should really start with The Teeth in the Tide, because that's where the story begins. But in this book, we really see that friends to lovers element come into play. And the last friends to lovers fantasy romance I have to share with you might be a questionable one, but I thought it was friends to lovers, so I'm putting it in here. And that is The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. So in this, we are following Olivia and Eric. So they met when they were very young. Eric was actually imprisoned by Olivia's father. And she would go to his cell and she would like sing to him and give him gifts and things like that. And he ends up giving her this medallion. And he tells her when he's about to escape that he will come back for it eventually. But years pass, and she forgets about him. She just thinks he's dead. But one day, she does something that calls to Eric, and he comes back to a masquerade ball, and he captures her, and he takes her prisoner on his ship so that he can use her as collateral to convince her father to give him what Eric wants. And through them being on this ship, they get to know one another again as adults, and that chemistry that they had and that love that they had when they were children is still very much present. So this is sort of a childhood friends to strangers to lovers story, which is why I put it in here, because I do think it has that friends to lovers dynamic in it. This again is another seafaring fantasy romance. I tend to really like those, and I really liked the writing in here. I liked the world. I liked the chemistry between Olivia and Eric, and this probably is on the spicier end. I want to say there's probably at least 2 or 3 smut scenes in this book. I still haven't read the freaking sequel, but I will one of these days. But highly recommend this if you're wanting a seafaring sort of pirate fantasy romance with some friends to lovers dynamic. So those are all the friends to lovers fantasy romance recommendations I have for you. Let me know down in the comments, have you read any of these? Will you be adding any to your TBR? But if you don't want to comment that, but would like to let me know that you made it to the end of this video, could you just leave me a heart emoji, because I honestly don't know what else for you to leave me. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, either go read a friends to lovers fantasy romance or recommend me a friends to lovers fantasy romance. Bye.